In a remote valley, cradled by mist-shrouded mountains, lived an old farmer named Lin. His was not a life of grandeur, but one of quiet contentment, carved from the stubborn earth of his small plot of land. His hair was the color of silvered sage, and his hands were a map of a lifetime of labor, etched with deep lines of soil and sun. Lin possessed a serenity that was as much a part of him as the old oak that shaded his humble cottage. His neighbors often remarked on it, some with admiration, others with a shake of their heads, calling him foolishly optimistic. The cornerstone of Lin's modest prosperity was a magnificent stallion, strong, wild-eyed, and the color of chestnuts in autumn. It was a horse of legend in the valley, capable of plowing the toughest field and winning any race. Kings would have coveted such a creature, but to Lin, it was not just a beast of burden, it was a companion, a testament to the beauty of the world. One morning, a neighbor arrived at Lin's gate, breathless and panicked. "Lin, your stable is open. The stallion is gone. It must have broken free in the night. This is a catastrophe. Terrible, terrible luck." Lin was tending to a young sapling at the edge of his field. He looked up, his face calm. He wiped his brow with a cloth and gazed towards the mountains. "Gone. So it is. As for luck, who is to say? It is a horse, and it is not in its stable. That is all I know." The neighbor stared, bewildered. "How can you be so calm? This is a disaster. You've lost your greatest treasure." Lin simply nodded. "Perhaps. Perhaps not. It is too soon to tell." The weeks passed. The neighbor and the entire village spoke of poor, foolish old Lin and his devastating misfortune. They offered their pity, but Lin accepted it with the same quiet grace with which he accepted a passing cloud. He continued his work, tending his other animals and his crops, his rhythm unchanged. Then, one evening, as the sun bled into the western peaks, a sound echoed through the valley, the thunder of hooves. Not one set, but many. To the village's astonishment, Lin's magnificent stallion returned, but he was not alone. Galloping beside him were 3 wild mares, their coats gleaming in the twilight, just as beautiful and just as strong. They followed the stallion right into Lin's paddock as if they had always belonged there. The same neighbor rushed over, his face now alight with glee. "Lin, you were right. It wasn't bad luck, it was a blessing in disguise. You had 1 horse, and now you have 4. This is the most wonderful luck. You are a rich man." Lin was mending a fence where the new horses had slightly splintered the wood. He looked at his beaming neighbor. 4 horses. So it is. Wonderful luck, you say? Who is to say? It is a change. That is all I know. The neighbor laughed, clapping Lin on the back. "You old mystic. Of course it is good. Celebrate." But Lin did not celebrate. He simply integrated the new mares into his life, caring for them with the same gentle diligence he showed all his creatures. Time flowed on like the river in the valley. Lin's son, a strong and eager young man, took it upon himself to break one of the new wild mares. The creature was spirited and noble, and the boy was determined to prove his skill. But during the attempt, the mare reared in a sudden panic. The boy was thrown violently to the ground, his leg snapping under him with a sickening crack. The village healer did his best, but when the bone set, it was clear the leg would never be right again. The boy would walk with a severe limp for the rest of his days. His strength for farming was halved, his dreams of leaving the valley to seek his fortune were dashed. The neighbor came again, his face a mask of gloom. "Oh, Lin," he moaned, "this is horrid. First your horse was lost, then it returned with more, and now your only son is crippled. Those mares were a curse. Such terrible, terrible luck." Lin was sitting with his son, preparing a poultice of herbs to ease the boy's pain. He looked up, his eyes deep and unreadable. "My son has a broken leg. That is what has happened. As for luck, who is to say if it is good or bad? The story is not over." The neighbor left, muttering that not only was Lin foolish, but he was now heartless as well. A season passed. The son adapted to his limp, learning new ways to perform his tasks. He could no longer run or jump, but his mind grew sharper, his patience deeper. Then, a new shadow fell upon the valley. The emperor's men arrived, their armor clanking, their faces stern. A great war had erupted with a neighboring kingdom, and every able-bodied young man was to be conscripted into the imperial army. The conscription officers went from house to house, tearing sons from their weeping mothers. The war was known to be a bloody, desperate affair. Few who went off to fight were expected to return. When the officers arrived at Lin's farm, they took one look at his son, his leg twisted and weak, and they passed him by. They moved on to the next farm, and the next, taking the neighbor's two strong, healthy sons, who had once pitied Lin's boy for his injury. The neighbor, his face ravaged by grief and fear, came to Lin's door. His own good fortune, his healthy, strong sons, had led them directly to the battlefield. Now, he watched Lin's son, alive and safe, though limping, helping his father grind grain. Tears streamed down the man's face. "Old Lin," he whispered, his voice broken. "Your son's accident, it saved him. My boys, they are gone to the slaughter. What I thought was your terrible luck, it was a blessing. And my good fortune, it has become my greatest curse." Lin placed a kind hand on his friend's shoulder. He offered him a cup of tea and said, "My friend, you wear yourself out by declaring things good or bad. Life is a river, and we only see one bend at a time. How can we know what the next bend will bring? I only tend to my farm, and my family, today. That is all any of us can truly do." The war raged and eventually ended. The valley mourned its lost sons. Lin's son, though he walked with a limp, grew into a wise and thoughtful man. He married and had children of his own. The 4 horses bred and grew into a fine herd, providing not just labor but also a means of trade that brought the family a comfort they had never known. The neighbor, aged and hollowed by loss, would often sit with Lin in the evenings. He no longer spoke of good or bad luck. He simply watched the sky change color over the mountains, learning, slowly, to see the world not as a series of fortunes and misfortunes, but as Lin always had, a vast, unfolding story whose meaning is never contained in a single chapter, but only revealed, with patience, in its entirety. And so, the old farmer's wisdom was passed down. Whether an event is good luck or bad luck depends entirely on what happens next. And since no one can see the future, it is wise to withhold judgment, to accept what comes, and to simply keep tending your garden. If you liked this story, and wish to listen to more such stories, then please subscribe to my channel. And do not forget to click the bell icon.